Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones, and this evening, as you know, I didn't do a live stream because I have a lot going on with school at this time. Now, if you look in my community tab, you will know when I do a live. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. It's probably going to be a couple of weeks. School ends on the 18th. I have assignments and exams coming up, but I will continue to do live streams, but I'm going to wait till school is out. But in the meantime, you're going to get a pre-recorded video tonight. And I'm also going to do a pre-recorded video next week. I mean, the information is the same as a live stream. The only difference is I am not utilizing a panel. I'm not utilizing StreamYards, but I'm utilizing Zoom. And the topics are just as important. So without further ado, let's get into tonight's topic. And it is very important. And I'm going to talk about the workplace. The title of this video is going to be Favoritism in Politics in the Workplace. Now, why do I bring this topic up? Well, a number of us are dealing with these issues of nepotism, favoritism, bullying, hostility. There's even underlying points of discrimination, though it's hard to prove, it still exists. Now, to me, I find the workplace today, it's more or less a place for people. They don't really produce anything, in my humble opinion. It's like a high school type of environment. There's a lot of gossip going on, a lot of allegations. Now, I will tell you this. In the last 30 years, you've heard the word teams come into picture. In fact, colleges have gotten degrees on organizational leadership and supervision. Although they're good degrees, your work environment is based on the visions of your leadership. Now, again, you must understand that there are differences between managers and leaders, and I'm going to give you the differences right now. Generally, it's your leaders who set the vision, while your managers manage the vision through getting the job done with people. And when it comes to management, you have what we call frontline management. Frontline management, or your supervisors, they basically manage all of the daily operations. And then you get into your middle management. Your middle management, they're the technicians. They're the ones that are putting the strategic moves on how to make the vision work. And then, of course, you have your upper management or your executive management. And what they do is they're your leaders. Again, when you hear the old term shit rolls down the hill, it's coming from the top. Now, one thing you must understand about the workplace is there is a lot of dishonesty. You can compare the workplace politics the same way you look at regular politics. Now, again, when I talk about the workplace and when I talk about politics, it's people. And one thing you have to understand about politics in general, whether it's in the workplace or whether it's your legislatures or your legislators, your senators, or even your presidents and your governors, it's competitive. This is why you have a lot of mudslinging when it comes to debates and politics. Well, you have the same thing when it comes to the workplace. A lot of kissing ass going on. And one thing that I do not play is brownie points. In fact, when I get my company on the road, I'm not going to have any of that. In fact, I'm going to have a personnel office, which is known as today, it's known as HR. I don't want to give HR that much power because as soon as you give them that much power, they're going to play favorites on who they're going to let in the door and who they won't let in the door, especially when it comes to a lot of women running HR, Black women at that. You're a Black man and Black women hate Black men, they're not going to let you in the door. They're going to look out for Black women. And that's the same with any other gender. Now, the workplace does present a lot of stereotypes. So generally, you don't see a lot of Black men in corporate. You might see some that are fruity. Of course, you see a number of women, white women, Black women, white men. And what you have to do when you go into work, you have to do what you're supposed to do, but you have to keep an eye open. I go to work every day. And I know there are little tactics that individuals try to do to me, especially when I'm about to leave. What they do to me is they'll leave early and I'm there to clean up the mess. Now, I will not lie for anybody. If they get caught, they get caught. That's the bottom line. I've seen nepotism. Nepotism is the worst as well. Why? Because you're bringing in family members. And of course, you're going to look out for your family before you look out for anyone else. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this topic to the forefront is because many of us are looking out for our own selves, but you must understand the workplace, especially today's workplace, there is bad leadership and the wages aren't going up. Many people overextending themselves. But when it comes to politics in the workplace, how do we combat it? Well, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to give you a little breakdown. Okay. When we deal with the workplace, are workplace politics destroying your organization? If it is, how do we fix it? Now, I'm going to post this link under my comments in my video as soon as the video is finished. This article was done by Sky Schooling. She's part of the Business News Daily staff, and the date on this was August 5th, 2022. However, although it was 4 months ago, the workplace is still the same. In fact, you look at the politics yesterday, a lot of individuals aren't really picked on their skills. They're picked on how they look. They're also picked on how they interview. And a lot of people are bullshitting their way up. We all know what it is. You can exaggerate your resume to make it say anything you want it to say. Because when you look at the gambit of the workplace today, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Now, let's learn how to properly identify and overcome office politics in your workplace. Unfortunately, I don't work in the office. I work out in the field, but I have worked in the office and I've seen a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. Now, when we deal with workplace politics, they're basically the manifestation of power dynamics amongst coworkers. That's when some of the coworkers you have, the ones that are good brown nosers, they think they're your bosses. This is why you have what we call the workplace mammy. You've heard that term, Sean James, shout out to him. He used to use that term for the individual who thinks she's the boss, but she's been there a long time, and she's the one that is the captain of the chatter or the gossip. Again, workplace politics are the manifestation of power dynamics amongst coworkers. Now, although workplace politics are inevitable, they can be overcome with proper leadership and influence. Now, again, when it comes to politics or favoritism in the workplace, you must avoid politics in the workplace by reducing distance from company decisions, and you have to demand accountability from all team members and reprimanding political behavior. I call the political behavior the brown nosing. Now, again, if you're going to have a business, the success of your organization is going to rely heavily on the effects of your employees, because they're going to make it important to maintain employee satisfaction throughout the company. Although it may be easy for top level executives of your company to make decisions that benefit themselves, your responsibility, again, your responsibility as a leader is to minimize workplace politics and ensure that each decision benefits the company as a whole, not just you. Again, these politicians out here, we the people, they don't represent we the people. They represent we myself. And there is no I in team with these politicians. This is why they talk out of both sides of their mouth. They try to be for all the people, but you can cut right through the BS and you know they're for themselves. Now, Chris Chauncey, who was the founder of a staffing agency, Amplio Recruiting, said that workplace politics is the manifestation of power dynamics amongst coworkers. Why did he say that? Very simple. It's because people basically leverage these power dynamics to further their own interests and that of a group they are affiliated with. Now, Chauncey told Business News Daily such behavior is inevitable, given that human beings are naturally political and will do whatever it takes to protect their own interests. Now, David Frankel, managing partner of executive consultant firm Slingstone Group, agreed that there will always be some form of politics in the workplace. However, workplace politics can be positive or negative. Your responsibility, again, as a leader, is to avoid and overcome the negative political behavior in your workplace. Again, if you own a business and you see that happening, you have to ask yourself, how are you going to combat it? What kind of leadership do you have in place that's going to respect you to combat workplace politics? Because everybody comes to the table with their own personal goals, egos, aspirations, and agendas. Also propaganda. In fact, next week I'm going to talk about propaganda and how it controls people. Again, everyone comes to the table with their own personal goals, egos, aspirations, and agendas. And in order for someone to get what they want, there is always going to be some level of compromise, negotiation, politicking, said Frankel. Now, where this starts to become problematic is when personal motivations are not aligned with those of the company. Now, how does workplace politics affect the workplace? Well, while a bureaucratic, politicized structure is most often associated with larger corporations, startups and small businesses aren't immune to this problem. According to Frankel, products can affect an organization when the founders, investors, and employees don't agree on a company vision. Perhaps there's a difference between founders in a strategic vision or debate about whether to seek outside money or questions from the board regarding commitment to a particular sales strategy, said Frankel. Now, maybe some employees feel that they're not getting enough credit, compensation, or options for their great work. Without strong leadership, these issues can linger. And of course, people will start to put their own personal gains ahead of the company. That is very true. This is why, as a leader, if you're managing a company, you must keep everybody informed, whether a decision is good or bad. You have a lot of organizational change that's going on. When your employees are not informed of what's going on, they're not going to care about the work they do. And then when leadership is all about lining their own pockets and they don't care about the employees, you already have dysfunction right there in your company. And a few years down the road, you may be bought out or you may have no job. Workplace politics and bureaucracies can be the downfall of any organization. So when negative office politics begin to fester in your workplace, your organization it will suffer. Office politics can divide colleagues, supervisors, and subordinates, which in turn may create a tense and disruptive work environment. Additionally, it can decrease employee performance, productivity, and company morale. Now, if workplace politics is going to be left unsolved, it's likely to increase employee turnover and damage your company's reputation, depending on how severe political behavior is. And it may even result in legal and financial ramifications. Now, areas where you're going to have a lot of high employee turnover, retail. Why? Because there are a lot of hours that get cut. There are a lot of long hours. You have to look at the business. When it comes to retail, most of your business takes place, I'm talking about heavy business, from Thanksgiving to maybe January. See it now. Now you have a lot of turnover because of bad management, and the pay is not substantial enough to live off of, and there are no promotions for individuals who have been there for a while. Furthermore, managers really don't care about their employees. They have a demanding way of leading employees. You see that in the restaurant industry. I worked in it for years as well. Long hours. In fact, when you're working retail and hospitality, they're not the typical 9 to 5 type of industries for everybody. Why do I say that? Because those are industries that have not 1, not 2, but 3 shifts sometimes. And some of them run 24 hours a day. And when you lose employees, you also lose money because you have to keep training new employees. Now, to avoid these potential consequences, it is important to quickly identify political behavior and fairly enforce disciplinary action as needed. So when employees engage in positive political behavior, it has the opposite effect on your organization. And I'm going to give you an example. And this example is, well, if you have employees who perform good deeds and positively influence others, workplace politics can be a positive advantage. Can also be used to build interpersonal employee relationships. It will improve efficiency, conduct, and elicit change. Of course, positive political behavior can ultimately improve company morale and employee retention. Now, did you know not all politics in the workplace is bad? Again, we deal with politics as it's something bad, but positive political behavior can have a positive impact on any organization. Now, again, what you see mainly in the workplace, depending on where you work, especially if you're working in a office environment, you have office politics. So Paul Sosnowski, head of HR and co-founder at Resume Building at Site Zeddy, defined political behavior in a workplace as engaging in behind-the-scenes maneuvers to achieve a personal goal within the organization. He added that workplace politics can make or break your career. Now, you heard the positive effects of what we call positive politics. What about negative political behavior? Well, when it comes to negative political behavior, it is the opposite of positive behavior, said Chancellor. When you deal with negative political behavior, it's basically playing dirty at the expense of someone else. For example, watching a colleague make a mistake on a project and then turning it around to report them to your boss and offering to correct the error. This is where you get your kiss ass, your brown nose. You always have somebody that's ready to tell the boss on everything you do. We call that the office snitch. Now, when you deal with negative political behavior, this is what is included. So pay attention. You've heard the term backstabbing, not the OJ song Backstabber, but that song does play to backstabbing. And there was a song out back in 1971 by Undisputed Truth, Smiling Faces. Now, I'm not going to be like everybody else. I know the words. I'm not going to sing it, though. You'll have to listen to the song yourself, and you'll find out what it's talking about. But again, getting back to the topic on hand, when we deal with negative political behavior, it includes backstabbing a colleague, blackmailing a colleague, forming malicious alliance against other colleagues, gossiping or spreading rumors about others, and intentionally withholding important information. Now, going back to what we call positive political behavior, although you will engage in office politics is basically determined by negative behavior. However, it is positive to engage in positive behavior in the office when it comes to politics. We call that positive political behavior. Now, an example of positive political behavior is identifying and aligning yourself with key influencers with the goal of leveraging their influence for career development without compromising your values or that of the organization. And this is what Chancey says. Now, when we deal with positive political behavior, this is what it includes: volunteering, presenting a professional image, complimenting, and of course, recognizing others. Now, the question is, if you're out there working, how can you tell if your organization or your business is politicized? Well, if workplace politics is dividing your organization, it is important to take notice and identify the root cause. This is where you get down to risk management or risk assessment. Now, there are several warning signs that your organization might need some structural changes. Now, Frankel listed about 5 telltale signs of a political business environment. Now, number one, you have to look at an individual's personal awards. Do they not align with organizational rewards? There is an A system that needs to be worked out, and the best navigators are rewarded. Also, urgency, number 3. Number 2 was the A system. Number 3, urgency takes a backseat to process, and the stakeholders in this status quo become threatened by change. This is where you deal with organizational leadership. Now, who are the stakeholders? You have stockholders, or the stakeholders are people who work with inside the company, your employees and your managers. Number 4, people who do not regularly produce results don't get fired or reprimanded. Again, this is a big one right here, because I've actually seen individuals who don't even qualify for a position and they get promoted and they're my boss. These are the ones who should be fired, but they do not produce anything for the organization, but they still maintain their status of an employee without any reprimands. Now, again, the average employee has little knowledge and visibility into the company's decision making because a lot of times management does not pass down the information. You may once in a while get an email. Now, if you're an employee, you're going to know something suddenly, but must understand that the people above you are always going to be cooking something behind your back. Now, other indicators of negative office politics include a perceived distance between lower level employees, executives, closed door meetings with exclusive information that isn't discussed with the rest of the organization, and star employees are leaving because they don't see a path to advancement. I just mentioned that. Now, as a supervisor, how can supervisors impact workplace politics? Well, you have to understand when it comes to culture and political environment of your company, it starts with the top executives. Just like I said before, your leadership. Now, supervisors should display appropriate political behaviors to influence good behavior in the rest of the company. Let's look at an NFL football team. Who is consistently bad out here? The Cleveland Browns. If you look at the Cleveland Browns, since they've come back into the league, they have only gone to the playoffs twice. But you have to look at how many coaches they've had, how many people have come and gone from their team. Look at the front office. Your NFL team is only as good as your front office. And when you have a bad front office, nobody wants to play for that team. Now, again, the Cleveland Browns have recently had a few good seasons when they had Baker Mayfield, but now he's gone and they have Deshaun Watson. But I don't see the Cleveland Browns hoisting up that hardware called the Lombardi Trophy anytime soon. Why? Because their leadership, their front office. There's a lot going on up there. And you have to have leaders who have the mind for football. Just like if you're running an organization in the hospitality industry. Just because you wear the title, it doesn't mean you're qualified to be in that position. Now, when it comes to a supervisor, several behaviors supervisors need to reduce negative politics at work. I'll tell you right now, you have to do what is right, not just for your team, but for the organization as well. You have to network, align, and build strong relationships across the organization as opposed to being avoidant or cliquish. The cliques are the worst things that you see in office environments. If they don't like you, they're going to try to get you out of there. Now, you also institute firm policies that support open feedback. Stop negative political behaviors in their tracks. And if you have someone engaging in gossip, put a halt to the gossip. Get rid of those people. They're the snakes. And don't isolate yourself from employees. Distance also leads to negative power dynamics. Why? Because if you isolate yourself, the other employees are going to think you got something up your sleeve. But what you do, you be part of the team, but don't show anybody that you have an agenda. Because, first of all, when you go to work, your job is to do what you're paid to do and go home. So in the office, you're going to have to interact with people. Now, one thing you have to understand, you have people who bring their problems to work and they love to gossip. Gossiping and cliques and favoritism and nepotism are your four worst enemies, because you see that a lot. You might not say anything about it, but it is there. And you see people who don't work hard and they're not qualified get the promotions because they know how to watch somebody's back. You've heard that term? You watch my back, I wash yours. Well, sometimes you're not looking, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. You have people who talk with a forked tongue out of both sides of their mouths, just like politicians. So, what I'm going to tell you is, in addition to representing positive behaviors for the organization, supervisors are responsible for investigating the reasons behind negative political behaviors that have taken place. Such behaviors can be caused by ill functioning work structures or unfair treatment, but they may also be initiated by individuals that aspire to achieve something beyond their authority, lack social skills, or they simply cannot comply with the company's ground rules. So, to stop political behavior before it starts, what you need to do is come up with a set of company values like transparency, impact, communication, and then hiring employees who embody those values. Additionally, what you need to do, you need to create and adhere to clear organizational structures for bonuses, promotions, reprimands, and so on. Now, again, if you're a leader out there, don't make promises that you can't keep. There are a number of employees who are going to leave. If you tell them you're going to give them a raise and they've been there for 20 years and they've been doing a good job and they're not being recognized, you better believe they're going to get out of there. Why? Number one, you're dealing with jobs that really don't pay anybody enough for living. Yes, there are a lot of jobs out there now, but do you think $15 an hour at McDonald's? Yeah, it might be a lot of money to somebody who's never made it, but how often are they going to work you? Remember something, when you deal with pay, and I know you hear a number of women on Kendra G's show saying they make six figures. I'm going to break you down and tell you why they don't make six figures. Well, let's say they're working for somebody. You get a gross salary. Now, you have items that come out of your paycheck that are pre-tax, like your retirement and your health and your dental and your vision. They're expenses. And then you get into your tax part of your check. You have Social Security, state, local, federal taxes come out, or municipal taxes come out. Then you have to look at, now, if you're a man and you're paying child support, that's going to come out of your check, or any other wage garnishments. Then you have to break that down further and find out where your monthly bills are. So in the end, are you really making $100,000? You're grossing $100,000. So don't be fooled by the six figures, because you have to look at how many hours the person is working. Do they own the business? What position are they in within the business? And are they managing their money when they're not working? That's how you break it all down. Now, again, getting back to the topic in hand, when it comes to employees, you have to let employees know what their options are, what is achievable for them, and how to get there. Now, this is simple. You have to establish clear paths that will help your employees achieve their goals. Teach employees the ways to build healthy relationships and how to respect others and be respected. Once positive behaviors are encouraged and fair solutions provided, employees should not feel the need to engage in competitive or unfair practices. Again, you have a lot of competitive jealousy that goes on in the workplace as well. So again, to sum everything up, here's how to avoid workplace politics in your organization. Because what you're doing, the main goal is to minimize politics in a growing organization. And to do that, it begins with its leadership. And the best way to accomplish the goal is to encourage transparency, and collaboration amongst team members at all levels. Now, when Frankel, and Frankel is one of the individuals who is talking about workplace politics being negative and positive. Now, there are steps to breaking down divisive walls of negative politics at work. Number one, reduce distance from company decisions. Now, this is basically dealing with small companies first. And when you have a small company, you're going to grow. And when you grow, you're going to add more structure, policies, and of course, management layers. The average employee naturally becomes further removed from the executive leadership on a day-to-day basis. Management teams need to be mindful that this distance from company decisions is a key factor in politics, infiltrating even the most successful companies. Also, you got to promote communication and transparency amongst teams by holding regular meetings, town halls, and group lunches. Make sure everybody knows what the corporate objectives are and talk openly and honestly about the challenges that the company is facing. Trust all employees. I said all employees, not just executives and managers, with information and make them stakeholders in the success of a company. So when leaders trust their team and they empower them with insights into company challenges, the team can take an active part, and I'm going to say a greater active part in conquering those challenges of workplace politics. Communication is another key. Management does not do a good job with communication to employees. So employees are basically left on their own. Number two, don't tolerate political behavior. Now, again, everyone's success should be measured first and foremost by the overall company objectives. When even the hint of me first behavior crops up in the meeting or an email, ensure it gets squashed swiftly. Now, the pushing of personal agendas, no matter who participates in it or at what level of the organization, should not be rewarded. So, the minute leadership accepts political or bureaucratic behavior, it is an invitation for it to run rampant within the company culture. Again, leadership basically has a vision, and a culture starts from leadership, upper leadership. And when it comes to accountability, number three, demand accountability from all team members, which means each employee should understand their role and how it contributes to their success of the company, and then be expected to deliver. That's right, like the mailman, you got to deliver accountability. So when a company has a big success or reaches a milestone, it should be recognized both as a team win and a celebration of the success of those who contributed to the company with the accountability and responsibility at all levels of the organization, not just the senior salesperson, head engineer, or manager. You notice what I said, senior, head, or manager. Managers usually get the credit for what the employees are doing. Likewise, you have to flip it. Accountability works both ways. When a mistake or failure occurs, those who contributed to it should be expected to take ownership for their roles. And that includes executive management, so that the mistake can be fixed and not occur again. When employees are willing to be praised for the wins, but afraid to take responsibility for the losses, it shows they're more interested in their own success than the company's. And when that happens, you may no longer have a job either. Now, no matter how committed a leader is, the work environment cannot completely be depoliticized. It can't. You're always going to have some politics, some nepotism, but you can squash it before it gets to a certain level. So a concerted effort to be more accessible and transparent can effectively reduce the impact that politics will have as an obstacle to the company's success. Now, again, this article was done by Sky Schooley. Sky Schooley is a human resources writer at business.com and, of course, Business News Daily. She's researched and written more than 300 articles on HR-focused topics, including human resources operations, management leadership, and HR and technology. Now, in addition to researching and analyzing products and services that help business owners run a smoother human resources department, such as HR software, PEOs, HROs, employee monitoring software, and time and attendance system, Sky Schooley also investigates and writes on topics aimed at building better professional culture, like protecting employee privacy, managing human capital, improving communication, and fostering workplace diversity and culture. Now, again, the article, some of what I talked about in the article and I read in the article, I agree with, some I don't. It sounds good from an HR perspective in a corporation if you're working downtown, but what if you're working in a district somewhere? It just doesn't happen. Sometimes away from the centralized part of a corporation is where you get a lot of the monstrosity. Let me give you an example. Let's take a state Department of Transportation, for instance. Okay. I used to work for PennDOT. So their headquarters is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now, PennDOT has 11 different districts. And of course, within the districts, they also have county maintenance offices. Now, when it comes to politics, particularly, you see a lot of it in government. This is why road projects take so long to get built. Because what happens is you got another layer of government that's allocating funds to your state Department of Transportation. Now, within that state, the money is going to go to the capital. Here it goes to Indianapolis. That's the capital, which is the capital of Indiana. ODOT, the capital is Columbus, Ohio. PennDOT, the capital is Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So the capitals are going to decide where that money is going to go. Some districts get more money than others. That depends on the needs and the population of the districts. Well, it's funny because the more populated areas, again, they're going to get most of the money. And you want your capital city to look good because that's going to attract a lot of people. But what happens is the individuals that are around the urbanized areas forget about the individuals that are in the less dense populated areas. So each district within the State Department of Transportation has its own agenda. So the result is you don't have a cohesive running State Department of Transportation. Yes, they all go by the same name, but they have different visions. If you don't believe me, you go and work for a State Department of Transportation. I've worked for two of them and I've seen it. And you can see the politics that are involved as well. And something else to tell you, and I'm using the State Department of Transportation as an example. Each district has its own different level of what we call organizational structure. Some may need more managers, some may need less. If you go downtown, their organizational chart is a lot different than what you see in the districts. But overall, when it comes to the office, there's a lot that goes on in the office. There's a lot that goes on in the field. Now, I'm telling you, when you're at work, what you should do, and I do it every time, I write what I do down every day. I don't memorize it. Don't try to memorize anything. Write it down. If you have to write the time down, write it down. You have a number of people who are petty in the workforce. See, the workforce is just like a big high school popularity contest. Number of individuals who are working, they might go in there with a suit and tie on, but they don't have any professionalism, no leadership skills. The bottom line is, when you go inside an office, you may think you're getting an environment of knowledgeable people. Some are, and you have some that aren't. Take keys when you go to interview. See what's going on in that office. Ask the questions. Most people don't ask questions during an interview. Don't take the job because you think it looks good. See, that's the problem. That's why we got bozos running the country now, because they're voting for them because they're black or they're female or they're trans. But are they qualified to do the job? And the word diversity is a phony concept. Diversity is what we call multiculturalism, which is Marxism. Okay. And affirmative action. Again, with that, and I'm going to tell you about affirmative action. Affirmative action was set up for black people. All the other minorities, they didn't have to go through what black people went through. But the people who have benefited off of affirmative action the most are white women. White women, in my opinion, are not a minority. They are a majority. But again, because black people weren't strong enough to make that case when affirmative action started, they still are at the bottom. But now you have to see if affirmative action is really working. It's not, because it leaves black men out. And when it comes to working, what you have to do, you have to know about the workplace before you enter it. You have to understand that there are going to be a lot of different personalities. Some people bring their dramas into work. You have to understand sexual harassment. You have to understand that HR isn't even looking out for you. They're not. They have their own agendas. But as somebody who's worked for many years and seen the workplace politics, I will tell you this: stick with a journal. A journal is the best way out. If you have to document something, like I'm an inspector out in the field and we have daily reports. Now, I don't remember everything that I did last week, but I keep a record of what I did because I write it down and then I put it in my daily report. Those are some examples of how you can stop workplace politics. And another way you can stop it is, if you have a job, keep putting your resumes out. Because if you know the situation is going to be bad, be ready to go somewhere else. Now, not going to say that the next place you go to is going to be better or worse. You have to have some type of work. And then when you understand what's going on in an organization, take your talents and build your own business. Now, again, I know not everybody is equipped to run a business, but learn from existing organizations on what to do and what not to do. Because I'm going to tell you this: when it comes to nepotism, favoritism, workplace politics, and gossip, if you don't alleviate those 4 issues, no matter what business you work for, or even if you have your own business. Those four items. You add the clique in there, the gossip, the egos, the uh, the self-centeredness. You add all those properties in there, issues. And then you have individuals who have their own agendas. You add all of that in there, you will have the destruction of the company. And what will happen? None of you will have a job. Why? Because you politicized yourselves out of work. In other words, you gave yourselves a pink slip. And when you have a pink slip, it means you have no job. You're out in the cold. So do yourselves a favor. Knock off the politics because it doesn't get you anywhere but a bad reputation. So if you want to succeed, understand that the workplace is full of politics. But if you want to get out of politics, start your own. And don't work for big companies either. Work for smaller companies. Because, like I've always said, when it comes to you as an individual, it's your future, it's your choice. A quote from the United Negro College Fund. Because in the end, you only live once. So make every day count while you are here. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some educational content, you check out the QCIS channel, formerly the Mind, the STEM. The slogan is still the same. Because on that channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. And if you cannot find me on YouTube, you can check both of those channels out on Twitter. Also, since the QCIS channel is a professional channel, you can also check that channel out on my LinkedIn page because in the end, I'm going to leave you with this. Be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, change it. Next week, talk about propaganda with more pre-recorded content. And once again, that's my commentary right here on the 401 Talk Zone radio show. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. You all have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.